France versus Norway.
And honestly, that anticipation was entirely justified. I mean, the combined market value of the players on those two squads was higher than any other match in the entire group phase.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, we were looking at a clash of absolute titans. These were two teams built to make deep, punishing runs into the latter stages of the tournament.
So everyone in that stadium and, the millions watching around the globe thought they were tuning in for the ultimate showdown. The narrative was inescapable. Kylian Mbappé versus Erling Haaland.
The heavyweights.
Right, fans were anticipating this epic battle for the Golden Boot, considering both of these guys had already scored twice in their opening group stage matches. We were so ready for fireworks.
And if you look at their production in Europe's Big Five leagues, since Haaland made his debut for Dortmund back in 2020, their numbers are just staggeringly identical.
Really? How close are we talking?
Mbappe had 138 non-penalty goals, and Haaland had 146. They are literally the two most lethal finishers of their generation, just operating with, wildly contrasting styles.
Right, you have Mbappe terrorizing defenses by dribbling from wide areas at supersonic speeds.
Exactly, and then Haaland operating as this unstoppable biomechanical penalty area predator.
It's the perfect matchup. But then, about an hour before the referee even blew the whistle, the team sheets dropped, and the reality was a massive tactical curveball.
A complete shock to the system.
Yeah, Norway's coach stole Solbakken and drops a bombshell that just sucked the air right out of the stadium. He rests Erling Haaland.
Which is crazy enough on its own.
But he doesn't just rest his superstar striker. He benches 9 other regular starters, too.
Yeah, it was wild.
He completely rotates his squad. He even swaps out his goalkeeper, bringing in Egil Selvik instead of the usual starter, Orjan Nyland.
It was a wholesale dismantling of the starting 11, 10 changes.
So, okay, I have to challenge this premise entirely. This is the World Cup, happens once every 4 years. Is Solbakken just displaying, a fundamentally loser's mentality here?
How do you mean?
Like folding a decent poker hand before the flop, just because the French team across the table has a bigger stack of chips?
Well, calling it a loser's mentality fundamentally misunderstands the brutal math of this expanded 48-team tournament format.
Okay, unpack that for me.
Solbakken isn't managing a single exhibition match, right? He is managing a physiological marathon. Norway had already secured a guaranteed spot in the round of 32 after their victory over Senegal.
Right, they were already safely through.
Exactly. So Solbakken was looking at a brutally dense schedule. They only had 3 days of rest between this hyper-physical match against France and their upcoming knockout clash against the Ivory Coast.
I hear that, and I hear the load management argument all the time in club football. But 3 days of rest is standard fare for elite athletes, isn't it? It is, but the stakes are different here. I mean, these guys play in the Champions League, they play in the Premier League, they are conditioned to recover. Throwing away a chance to beat back-to-back World Cup finalists just to save a little lactic acid seems incredibly cynical to me.
But it's not just about lactic acid. It's about the compounding risk of soft tissue injuries and the reality of squad depth. France can replace a world-class starter with another world-class player. Norway simply cannot do that.
Oh, that's a fair point. The drop-off is much steeper for them.
Exactly. Solbakken looked at the board and realized that throwing his best 11 into a draining, bruising battle against France just to secure the top spot in the group wasn't worth the physiological cost.
He essentially decided that winning the tournament war meant purposefully sacrificing this specific battle.
Precisely. He prioritized fresh legs for the round of 32.
Well, that pragmatic, spreadsheet-driven logic might work in a vacuum. But on the actual grass, it created a massive vulnerability. Because Norway fielded this heavily rotated, completely unfamiliar backline, they left the tactical door wide open.
They really did.
And France didn't just walk through it, they kicked it completely off the hinges. I want to drill down into the how here. What actually happens to a defensive unit when you change 10 players, including the goalkeeper?
It creates a catastrophic breakdown in microcommunications. A defensive line operates on pure muscle memory. The center backs need to know exactly how aggressive their fullbacks are going to be in any given moment.
Right, they have to move as a unit.
Yeah, and more importantly, they need to trust their goalkeeper. By swapping Orjan Nyland out for Egil Selvik, you alter the entire depth of the defense.
Because they aren't used to how he plays.
Exactly. If the center backs don't implicitly trust the backup keeper's ability to, say, sweep up long balls, they subconsciously drop 3 to 5 yards deeper to protect themselves.
Oh, wow. Just a few yards makes that big of a difference.
Huge difference. That subtle retreat stretches the gap between the defense and the midfield. And that creates a massive, exploitable pocket of space in the absolute most dangerous area of the pitch.
And that specific pocket of space you just mentioned is exactly where Kylian Mbappé set up camp to orchestrate the destruction of Norway.
He was just ruthless.
France capitalized instantly. Mbappé hit the crossbar just 21 seconds into the game.
21 seconds.
From that opening minute, the structural integrity of Norway's backup defense just shattered. And that paved the way for the Ousmane Dembélé show.
We witnessed an absolute masterclass in wide forward play, and it was enabled entirely by France's high-intensity 4-2-3-1 formation.
So break that down for us.
In that setup, you have 4 defenders, 2 holding midfielders anchoring the center, 3 attacking midfielders, and a single striker. But, the formation on paper rarely reflects the fluidity on the actual pitch.
Which perfectly explains this historic hat trick we saw. Yeah. Dembélé scores in the 7th minute, the 20th minute, the 32nd minute. 3 goals in 25 minutes.
It's just a phenomenal run.
To put that in perspective for you guys listening, this was the first half hat trick at the World Cup since Russia's Oleksilenko did it way back in 1994.
That is wild.
That is over 30 years of World Cup history without someone doing what Dembélé, who, by the way, arrived as the 2025 Ballon d'Or winner, just did in Foxborough.
And the mechanics of how he scored those 3 goals expose exactly what we were talking about with Norway's lack of cohesion.
Because of that pocket of space, right?
Yeah. Mbappé was doing something incredibly clever within that 4-2-3-1 structure. Instead of playing as a traditional striker pushing up against the center backs, he was constantly dropping deep into that exact pocket of space Norway's retreating defense had vacated.
So he's not where they expect him to be.
Right, he acted as a magnet. The backup Norwegian defenders didn't have the communication protocols established to decide who should step up and mark him.
So Mbappé pulls them completely out of position, fracturing their defensive line.
Yeah.
And then he's delivering these pirouetting, perfectly weighted diagonal passes into the space the defenders just abandoned.
Right into the path of Dembélé.
Yeah, exactly.
For the first goal, Mbappé slips a beautiful pass through a maze of retreating red shirts. Dembélé receives it, cuts inside, feints to freeze the defender, and blasts it into the far corner.
It was gorgeous.
And then, 13 minutes later, they execute almost the exact same sequence. Yeah. Same diagonal pass, similar spot on the pitch, and Dembélé finds the same corner. It was a surgical, repetitive exploitation of a defense that just didn't know how to pass off marking assignments.
The sources provided a statistical breakdown of Dembélé's performance that is, honestly, genuinely mind-bending. He earned a SofaScore 10 for this match.
A perfect 10.
Yeah, a flawless statistical rating before he was subbed off in the 65th minute to give Bradley Barcola some minutes. For context, a SofaScore 10 isn't just an arbitrary gold star.
No, it's really hard to get.
The algorithm demands that a player constantly adds positive value through their actions without accumulating any negative errors. He had 51 touches, 182 meters of progressive ball carrying, and 3 shots on target, resulting in 3 goals.
Pure efficiency.
But the metric that completely broke my brain involves his expected goals. Dembélé's expected goals, his XG, was only 0.29. But his expected goals on target, his XGOT, was 1.88.
That discrepancy is basically the holy grail for a forward, and it tells the complete story of why France was so lethal in that first half.
For those of you listening who might not spend your weekends digging into advanced football analytics, let's contextualize this. It's like a basketball player taking a heavily contested, terribly off-balance three-pointer from way beyond the arc.
Right, a terrible shot on paper.
Exactly. The analytical model, the XG, looks at the location and the defensive pressure and says that is a 0.29 probability shot. An average player scores 0 goals from these 3 attempts.
Yeah, but the expected goals on target, the XGOT, measures what happens after the shot is taken.
Right. Dembélé's shooting mechanics were so flawlessly executed, the ball placement was so immaculate